Hello to all of you awesome people that are listening to this podcast right now. This is another episode of Get Real with Casey Kasem. And on this episode, I got to talk with Dale DeMott of Eat Sleep Fantasy. Dale is someone I have actually met numerous times, so it was fun to be able to get to sit down and talk to him. He is an awesome planner of fantasy football events, helping plan Draft Night Out at the Fantasy Football Expo, something you should get your tickets to now as they'll sell out, along with the 49ers Rush Road Trip in Vegas and a ton of other great events. I chatted with Dale about being a Pop-A-Shot champion, having a podcast since 2016, traveling for fantasy football purposes, being a fan of the NBA, planning events, and a ton more. Make sure you're following Dale on Twitter at Dale_fantasy and Eat Sleep Fantasy at EatSleepFF. Follow me on Twitter at DKCKasem, as well as the podcast on Twitter at GetReal_pod. This podcast is a proud member of the DAP Network. Thanks for listening, and here's my chat with Dale DeMott. Maybe we'll go. Okay, I did say I'm bad at starting the podcast, and there we go. So how you doing, Dale?
That was a good start.
Maybe. My internet's not the greatest. How are you doing, Dale?
I'm excited about being on a Get Real podcast. I've been listening to you for a while. We met years ago in Dallas,
Definitely,
and I've seen you grow from a little observer to a big time podcaster now. That's awesome.
Well, I appreciate that. I'm very excited to have you on the show as well because, like you said, we've met, we've hung out, we've drafted together and all that jazz. So we'll talk about that later. But for now, let's start. I just want to know, when you were growing up, were you a sports fan?
Basketball is my first love. I grew up loving basketball, watched it, played it, basically my whole life. Watched a little football as I got older, into my college years, watched a lot of football and then started getting into fantasy football. But yeah, basketball, definitely. I was a Pop-A-Shot champion at one point. We could talk about that later. But it's been all basketball for me. I'm like a 90s basketball lover. I love all 90s, and especially early 90s hoops. I'm in love with still.
That's great. Yeah, that was like such a great moment of time for basketball because like I grew out of liking basketball, but like I remember being a kid in the 90s and being like, this is so awesome. So did you have a team or anything that you?
The Heat. Yeah, I grew up in Miami, so in South Florida. So the Miami Heat. I was, I think they started in '88, and that I became a fan instantly. Went to the games when I was a kid. A lot of fun. Grew up with Tim Hardaway and Alonzo Mourning and those guys, and the Dream Team, of course, in '92. That's like, so I was born in '82. So I was like 10 years old, 8, 9, 10 years old when I really started getting into basketball, and I love it.
That's great. So the love for football came later. How did you start liking football?
I wouldn't really say love.
Okay, the okayness, it's all right.
I'm kind of a weird fantasy football guy because I do like fantasy football. I like talking about it. I like watching football. I probably wouldn't watch too much football if it wasn't for fantasy football. I don't know how a lot of people think about that, but I grew up. I was a Dolphins fan, sorta. I watched the games. My family was really into the Dolphins, so I watched them. I wasn't a huge football fan until I really got into fantasy football, and then it was like, okay, now I have a reason. Same thing. Pretty much all sports nowadays. I'm a little bit older. The only reason I watch hockey is when I bet on it. The only time I watch fantasy football, it's I love watching it when I have money on it, and then that's about it.
Do you play fantasy basketball as well?
No, I never got into fantasy basketball. I played it for 1 or 2 years. It just wasn't my thing. It's just too many moving parts. I don't know. Maybe I wasn't playing it wrong, but the weekly lineups and stuff was just too complicated. And I stick to fantasy football. I enjoy it.
Me too. I was playing fantasy baseball for a little bit, and I'm like,
I think fantasy baseball seems harder. I never played it. I don't know, but it seems like a nightmare.
Yeah, it was like a one and done kind of thing. Yeah. Like I was like, I'm not doing this anymore. Yeah. So
or you just really have to be in baseball, I guess, right?
Yeah.
I think baseball is the slowest, most boring sport ever.
See, I was that bandwagon Texas Rangers fan when they had their little World Series losses, and so that's why I was playing fantasy baseball, and then they start sucking, and I'm just like,
betting makes sports so much better. If I was getting into fantasy baseball, I guess that would make baseball a little more fun to watch, but
yeah. But not all the time, daily or something. But so fantasy football is something that you got into, and exactly what was that situation like? How'd you get involved in fantasy football?
You know, it was just a couple. I mean, I think like most people, you know, their friends start getting into it, and you know, you get invited to a league, and you know, it's pretty cut and dry. I was like, hey, you know, you want to play fantasy football? Sure, I'll try it. And you know, before we started playing fantasy football, I remember, you know, in high school, we always used to get the newspaper and just look for stats and you know brag about different players and different teams. And so, you know, the group of friends had a really good understanding of you know how to watch football for the stats. And yeah, we just kind of got into it and started playing it, and that kind of just flooded into the fantasy football podcast. We just kept playing it, and then we started listening to podcasts, and then said, "Hey, we could do this." And then we tried it, and that was it.
That was it. You make it
Yeah,
sound so
yeah,
simple, but I'm sure it's not.
yeah.
Well, where did the idea to like actually have a podcast come from? Like, when did you decide like we need to do this?
I'm trying to remember. I don't know. I think it was just like there were a couple of league mates that I was friends with in high school, and I know they were listening to the footballers a lot and some of the other, you know, ESPN and I think CBS at the time, and they just said, hey, you know, let's try to do this. You know, all that we need is a microphone. And one guy had a job where they like his company did a podcast. And he was like, yeah, it's really easy. I could just set it up and let's just start recording. And then, you know, of course, you know, we just jumped into it and figured it out. And that was 2016. So it's been a while. It's been a crazy ride.
Yeah, I mean, you guys have been around for quite some time, and that's so awesome that you guys are still there. You still have all this part in the fantasy industry. You're just, you know, you guys are a recognizable brand, so that's
Yeah.
that's
Well,
really cool.
I appreciate it. I mean, you know, it is cool to, you know, have been in this space for as long as we have. You know, I don't know if all podcasts are like this. I think some that have been along as long as us, I think they've kind of seen a steady incline. You know, you just got to keep putting out content, and we've kind of been up and down. You know, some years we record more than others, and the big thing for me was like, this is not my job; it's a hobby,
Yeah.
and we were never really going into it to pay bills. It was, you know, just for fun. If we make a
Hmm.
couple bucks, great. If not, no big deal. And so when it starts becoming a chore, you know, when we don't want to record, you know, and especially in season, you know, there's times where we record like 4 or 5 times a week, and then you know it becomes you just get burnt out, and I'm not in it for that. So it's like, hey, when it becomes a chore, when I don't feel like recording, we just won't. And you know that I'm sure you know our listenership feels that, and then that's why it goes up and down as well. But for me, it's just like I'm not, you know, I don't want to make a chore out of this. We're not, you know, we're not in it to, you know, if our listeners to stick around, cool. If not, we understand. You know, we kind of do it as a hobby, and I think most of the listeners understand that. You know, we try to be entertaining. We try to, you know, bring some fantasy football goodness, but at the same time, you know, it's a fun hobby for us.
That's
Yeah.
exactly how it is for me too. Like you can tell when I'm in a mood to put out content. I put out
Sure.
maybe multiple episodes a week or something, and then there'll be long pauses. But like you said, burning out. So when you first, I don't know, you don't want to get to that point. How do you deal with, you know, balancing it all and
Oh,
making sure that you don't burn out?
yeah. No, we're horrible at that. I burn out all the time. We don't balance. We go. You
Yep.
know, balls to the wall. You know, 4 or 5 days a week. You
Hmm.
know, trying to pump out as much as we can. You know, content on the website, and then like it becomes, you know, November, and I'm like, yeah, I don't really feel like recording today. And they're like, okay, yeah, me neither. And then the next day goes on. Then you know that week we do 2 episodes a week, and then we get back to 4 the next. So yeah, just we go pretty hard until we don't. There's no balancing. I mean, I don't. I'm sure there's some kind of formula. People, you know, have that, you know, balance of, you know, when to do it, but we don't. We keep going until we don't want to, and then we start back up again. But yeah, I mean, if you look at our episodes, we've done, I don't know, like 450 or so episodes, 400 and something. And if you look at our schedule, if there was a way to see, it's crazy. I mean, you know, there's off seasons where we record like 1 episode, and there's some off seasons, you know, we've done, you know, 50. So it's just kind of whatever the group does. You know, we had over the years we've had a small group of guys that kind of come in and out, and yeah, it's been fun though. It's definitely just a hobby. It's, you know, we don't want to, you know, if we get burnt out, we just won't do it.
That's great though, and then you end up having like a core fan base that like has been there, and it's just awesome to see that you can take a hobby and do something like that, because a lot of people think you have to be full time and whatever to be able to put out that much content to have a podcast that comes out and sounds nice. Like your podcast sounds really
Yeah,
really, you
appreciate
know,
that.
professional.
Yeah, thanks. Yeah, I mean, we, you know, Yeah, I appreciate it. I mean, we do spend a lot of time on, trying to get that stuff right. But at the same time, we also, and, I know I said, sometimes we don't record. It's really important just to let your listeners know and be transparent. Do what you say you're going to do. If you're, running a listener league, follow through with it. If you're running a giveaway or, more importantly, well, not more importantly, but also, sponsorship opportunities and stuff like that. If you're on a schedule, and that's when it starts becoming a chore. When you're doing it for money, and it's like, oh, okay, now we got to do, we have to do a Wednesday, Friday episode, and then even if you don't want to, then it's like, now I'm doing it for the money, and things just get weird, and and then we're like forced to record, and we're tired, and we do a half-ass episode just for the buck, and it's real. I mean, it's tough sometimes though.
Well, and since you don't do fantasy as your full-time job or anything, how do you manage to find the time to podcast with the work and podcast balance?
Yeah, that I've been pretty lucky with that. So my day job is pretty flexible. And then the guys I record with, I could basically arrange my schedule around theirs. A lot of times it's 3, 4, 5 o'clock in the afternoon as I'm wrapping up work, or we kind of deal with it that way. So I'm lucky that I have a flexible job that I can get away for an hour at a time if we need to. A lot of times it's at night. Me and you are recording here at 9 o'clock at night, and that's fine too. Really, we just whatever fits in our schedule.
And that's awesome too. That's another thing to go with the hobby thing is in the schedule and everything is to work with each other and get that talk to each other about what night, or what works best for everybody.
Mm-hmm.
So when you guys communicate and everything, when you first started out, what is something that you wish you would have known about communicating with a co-host or even having a co-host? Cause this is a podcast where I'm all by myself. Right.
Yeah,
and then I talk to you and that's awesome. So, but I don't know from your perspective.
Yeah, no, I mean, that is tough. And, sometimes, over the years, you really want to record and you want to put out content, and then, your hosts feel burnt out, and, you can't force them to record when they don't want to. And so that's kind of a fine line to, negotiate. And I think that's what's really important about having the core group of guys. I mean, we started off with 4 people, basically hosting. Sometimes all 4 of us would be on, sometimes just 2 of us. So I think, starting out, it's important, if you don't want it to be your job and you don't want it to be a chore, I strongly suggest having a rotating guys that you trust, guys that you have a good rapport with, to jump in and jump out as they need to. Because a lot of times, I feel burnt out and I'm like, I don't want to record, and, everybody else does, or vice versa. And then, you get into problems, I mean, it could cause arguments or whatever in the group, and, and that's not fun. So, just being transparent with everybody. Hey, do what you say. If hey, I'm going to be available on Monday, and you follow through with it. And even if sometimes if you don't want to, you do just because you get to follow through with what you said.
And I smiled when you were talking there because I hadn't heard that before. About that makes sense to me, having a rotating group of people in and out, because like you said, you do get burned out and the nights might not work. So that's really cool.
Yeah, I mean, early on and kind of now still, I've been pretty protective of the host, because I really feel like the hosts are the brand, right, of Eat Sleep Fantasy. So, if they're coming on there expecting one of 3 or 4 people all the time. So I try not to have too many. I don't know if this is going to sound weird or pretentious or whatever, but I try not to have too many outsiders on the show, just because I feel like when people are listening, the brand is the core group of hosts, the 3 or 4 guys. And so we try to keep it that way for the most part. And we have guests on every now and then. Actually, not too much lately, but we've had guests on, and that's a different story. So the rotating door is really just that core group of 3 or 4 people.
Awesome. Yeah, and sometimes it can feel like too much when you have way too many people, on a podcast.
Yeah, it's like a movie, I mean, you're trying to watch a movie, and they're, like some gangster movies have 15 characters in the first opening scene, I can't deal with that. So
I'm like, wait, that guy's voice sounds like that. Wait, hold on, who's talking?
Yeah. So especially the Italian stuff, they all kind of look the same, all the same slick back hair, same accents. And then you're trying to figure out whose cousin's who, and we try to avoid that. So.
Well, that's awesome. So, and you guys have really good chemistry when you're on the show together. How do you guys make sure that you keep that energy fresh and keep that, friendship that shows, how do you make sure that you guys don't get it out of whack?
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, we're friends before the podcast. Maybe that helps.
Yeah.
I'd heard some of your other guests say that same stuff.
Mm-hmm.
We were friends before, so we bust each other's balls all the time. The group chats are always nice. I mean, I'm in group chats with people I've never met in real life that I feel like are some of my best friends. As crazy as it sounds. Shout out to Austin Thompson. But anyways,
shout out Austin for real.
Yeah, so I mean, the group chats really help, get to know each other. Not just, we don't. I think our real like ESF group chat, we never talk about fantasy football. It's always, posting stupid jokes or links or making fun of somebody. I think that helps with the rapport for sure.
That's awesome to have that kind of group where you guys can chat like that.
Yeah.
What is your favorite thing to talk about besides fantasy football?
You don't want to know. I can't talk about that.
Okay, well, see, this is the first time on the podcast. This is the first time someone said nope. No. Okay, what's your second favorite thing to talk about? What's your 12th favorite thing? Let's get down to wherever you can talk about.
Yeah, no, there's just I mean, there's a lot of topics that my wife would get mad at me for talking about.
Yeah.
We're open and honest with everybody. I mean, politics. We talked about politics and crazy topics, current events, stuff like that. It's just like a group of friends, and some people, end up fitting in great, and some people bail out, and that's okay. Over the years, we've had people come and go, and most of them went because of certain topics maybe we talked about in the chat, and it's it is what it is. I mean, I'm not an offensive guy. I do joke around a lot, but anyways, I don't know how much I want to get into it, but.
No, you're good. We're just gonna.
I'm making it seem way worse than it is.
You are making it seem like he likes.
I know.
He likes to talk about how he cooks, spaghetti for dinner and how delicious it is. That's what he loves to talk about.
I don't know why I'm playing it up. Like it's really.
That's all right. We'll leave it to the mystery, and if you guys really need to know the answer, maybe it'll be at the very end.
Maybe.
Probably not, but that way people might want to keep listening. Hey, so starting the podcast, starting the website, and everything with people that you knew.
Yep.
Are all of those people still there with you?
No. I mean, a lot of them are. I'd say. I mean, we have a core group of 4 or 5 people. Not hosts, just like people that have been around.
Mm-hmm.
But I'd say we have 10 or 12 people involved in the podcast between writers and whatever, just contributors, some friends, some listeners that have somehow infiltrated our group text and they just stuck around. Shout out Rob. But yeah, it's been kind of a carousel a little bit. And people come and go. They move on to they start their own podcasts. They join other podcasts. It's all good.
Well, that's really cool. And me getting to listen to your podcast from close to the beginning and getting to meet you guys for the first time and everything, that was like a really cool experience in Dallas. When you guys decided to travel to Dallas and do that, what were you thinking? And this is a brand new kind of thing. So you guys don't live in Dallas, right? So how did that go?
Yeah, no, that's been one of my best times about the whole thing about podcasts is one, meeting people. I've met a lot of people through traveling with the podcast. We've done, the conventions and stuff like that. We've done draft night out. We've done different drafts. We've been to Vegas a handful of times for different drafts. That stuff to me is, I think, more fun than podcasting. I have an entrepreneurial background a little bit, and so I like the planning and organization of events. I'll talk about some events that we have coming up later, but that stuff is just it was fun for me. Planning how to get to Dallas. The first time we did, where we're going to go, how, what bar we're going to go to, what's going to work best, who we're going to invite, is anybody going to come out, are we going to get, Casey volunteered to come out, and I think she was the only one for a couple days, and so especially podcasting, radio is a little different. I grew up listening to talk radio and stuff, but that's so localized, right? So you have a radio event going on, and everybody from the city comes, but podcasting, you have, especially early on, your listenership is spread out so thin all over the United States that, we have a good listenership, but only 2 of them are from Dallas. and how are we going to deal with that? So, yeah, did I answer your question?
Yeah. My question was very not even a question. It was just, but I have a problem with rambling on the questions because I'm trying to get to where I'm supposed to be. It's very hard for me. My notes don't make any sense. I don't know why I do that, but I did. Hey, here's a note that I took that might actually. I want to know about the listenership that you're talking about. How did you guys get listeners at first? Because 2016. I mean, it's not
it was weird. So we started off and, we were posting just like on SoundCloud. I think at the time we didn't even have a host, and it just grew somehow organically. I remember, we had like 3 or 4 episodes, and I was sitting at dinner and I told my wife, I was like, it's kind of weird, like 20 people listen to us. And then I refreshed it. I was like, oh, there's like 50 people. That's cool. And then like by the end of dinner, it was like 250 people, 250 listens on that episode. I was like, this is kind of, it was so strange to me. I was like, it was like I was sitting in a room with 250 people listening to my nonsense, and I didn't really even know what I was talking about at the time. They were horrible episodes. But yeah, it was, it kind of just grew organically. And then early on, like, I don't know, maybe 10 episodes in, Ross Tucker found us, and we got on his podcast and he got on ours. And that really helped. That boosted us a little bit. We got a couple other big guests, and then somehow we started charting high on iTunes. Again, I don't know how. I don't know what we did. Yeah, I'm not smart enough to figure out, how we how we landed that. But we charted top high on iTunes, and then it kind of just took off a little bit. And especially for a new podcast, we had 20 or 30 episodes in by the time the season rolled around, and we were top 3 or 4. We definitely didn't have the viewership or listenership that the big guys had that we were charted above. But for some reason, the algorithm liked something we were putting in our title, something we were putting in, all that stuff. I'm sure it can kind of be hacked now, but at the time we didn't know what we were doing. It was just, it was up there. And then of course, get high on iTunes. And when people type fantasy football on iTunes, we're one of the, you'll see ESPN, CBS, then us. And I guess maybe that was a kind of an attraction to a lot of people that we were, not one of the big boys, and they wanted to take a listen. So
you guys were the original people that figured out how to crack the algorithm without even knowing it. That's crazy.
I guess. Yeah. I don't know. I don't know what happened. But.
No, I mean, I found it. I don't even know how I found you. I mean, I guess I found you guys through the convention.
Maybe.
Fantasy. I don't know. I thought I was listening to you guys. No, I had to have been listening to you guys beforehand because I said I'd come to your draft. All right. So I know it was pretty early because I remember SoundCloud. I remember listening to it on I remember listening to podcasts on SoundCloud.
Yeah. We didn't
because
know.
Also the original SoundCloud rappers.
Yeah.
Love it.
Man, the SoundCloud. Did you know there's click farms and stuff for that stuff? Like
no,
it's crazy. So SoundCloud artists now can go and pay $50,000 to some guy in a dark room, and they'll give you 200,000 plays on your music. And so these labels and stuff are throwing money around, or these independent guys are throwing money around to get these big plays on SoundCloud and all these other players, Spotify and stuff. It's weird.
Wow. Okay. How do I get that job? I'm just I can listen to
just playing songs over and play the song 100,000 times.
I mean, I already do that anyway with the songs I listen to. So the songs that I don't listen to. Wow, I'm learning things about SoundCloud. Wow.
Yeah, write that down.
I did just so just in case. All right, new job. Okay. No. So SoundCloud, you move on to now everything's on all different kinds of platforms and everything. To see the growth of the podcasting world, what has that meant to you, and how does it feel to see something that you started out when it was small and now it's so big?
I really don't think much of it, to be honest with you. I mean, Twitter is definitely a little harder to navigate with so much content, which I mean, it's not a bad thing. It's a lot of content. Besides that, I don't know. We're not really super close to a lot of other podcasts. I mean, we know a few of the podcasts that started around the same time as we did. But for the most part, I don't know. I don't see a big difference. I mean, I don't listen to a lot of podcasts. So yeah, I guess a big thing I guess is Twitter's a little harder to navigate nowadays, but it's fine.
Twitter in general with fantasy football, it's been really instrumental in a lot of stuff when it comes to fantasy
Yeah,
football.
well, I mean, I attribute to a little bit of our of our at least getting our name out on Twitter. Just I remember for the first, if somebody's listening and trying to start a podcast, all that we did, we just started searching fantasy, hashtags fantasy football and replying to everything. We went through all of Matthew Berry's mentions and replied to everybody asking him questions. He didn't. I don't know. He didn't like that. But we were just everybody asked him start questions. We were just butt in. Hey, this is what I would do. This is what I would do. And then we were getting one follower at a time. Haven't done that in a while, but it was fun. It was fun. I mean, that's like the real like grind of trying to start a podcast and marketing yourself and getting your name out there.
Maybe you responded to one of my tweets, and that's what happened.
Probably,
I'm going to guess.
yeah.
It's probably the one that
Matthew
Berry blocked me in. He was like, "But hey, I got a podcast out of it to listen to." So when I first met you guys, and you guys had a booth and everything in Dallas, at the now defunct fantasy football, whatever. What was it called?
Yeah, National Fantasy
Football Convention. Yeah. Okay.
Yep.
Yeah. But it was really cool, like coming up on you guys, and you had a booth, and it was just like, at that time, I wasn't doing anything in the fantasy football world. I was just a, fan. And so to see you guys with a booth and everything, I was like, oh my God, this is so cool. You guys are so like, how are you doing this? Like, how did it feel though to have people come up to you and be like, hey, I listen to your podcast or whatever?
That was weird. That was really weird to have people like, come shake your hand. Hey, are you Dale? I'm like, yeah. I wasn't expecting it. We went in thinking, no, but we were coming in as like, okay, nobody knows who we are. Let's just get out there. And, we were advertising on the podcast, and a couple of people said, oh, maybe I'll stop by, whatever. And then, when they did, it's still so weird, to know that people, like I've said, I've recorded over 400 episodes. Most of that, I'd say 25% of each episode is something pretty personal. And most of the time it's a topic I bring up that's like about my wife and kids, or just about daily life, something that happened to me. So when people come and talk to me, it's like, I forget how much they know about me. And it's so weird that somebody knows who I am. And, I don't know them, or, maybe I've seen their name or whatever, come across emails or Twitter or whatever. But that's something that I mean, we're not, I don't have like mobs of people, obviously, but the one or two people that come over like during the conventions and stuff, it's cool. It's a pretty cool feeling to, have known to like reach somebody.
That first year in Dallas, when you guys did that, when you guys came, the best part of that whole trip or that whole weekend was the draft that you guys had afterwards, like the live draft. It was like my first live draft experience. So, why did you decide to do that?
It was just we were looking for stuff to do. We knew that there was nothing going on at the convention. It was maybe they had like a $500 VIP party or something that night that we weren't doing. And so we're like, hey, if we can get together enough people, and we had a few listeners come. I know you did, and a couple others, and then we brought like our whole team. There was like 5 other people, with Eat Sleep Fantasy, and they came to help fill out the draft, and that was that. It was fun.
It was a blast. Like one of my favorite memories of the whole fantasy, like anything that I've gone to, was that.
Yeah, I mean, I'm big on the events and stuff. Like I said, I enjoy planning it. I enjoy being part of it. The experience of it all. I feel like if we can take the podcast and create experiences from it, and that's why I'm getting so involved in in different events now, is that crossover experience, I think, is really important. So many people spend and value so much of your time as you're podcasting. They listen to you for weeks and weeks and weeks throughout the season, and to kind of try to cross that over and give them an experience, I think it's pretty cool. You're
like a fantasy football party planner with your I mean, for real, you've got all these events, and you said you'd get into that later, which, I mean, this is kind of later. What I want it's later, but when you first started putting on events, and now to see how big they've gotten, like, does it blow your mind that you've been able to get something like that started off with 15 people, and you just, and then blow up like it has?
Yeah, I mean, it's not me for sure. It's I'm kind of setting the stage, but it's getting in contact with the right people. Getting letting hey, we're doing this, and then you tell your Twitter followers that you're doing it, and that kind of tell just try to partner up with as many other content creators as possible. And I don't think it's me. I think I've just I helped set the stage for it, but it is really cool. Last year we did draft night out at the Fantasy Football Expo. I think at one point we had like 110 people in the room, which it was packed. It was packed. But the coolest thing was like just everybody networking, having a good time. There of course they were drafting and stuff, but I think that it is really cool to work hard to plan something like that, and then seeing people have a good time.
Did you get to enjoy it? Because when I saw you,
No.
you were, checking to make sure, tickets and everything come on in.
Yeah,
So,
yeah.
did you get to enjoy any of that
No.
experience?
No,
No,
not really, not really. I
but
mean,
you did get to see
it was
everybody that came in. So.
yeah, no, I'm not like I think a lot of people in the podcast industry or that podcast are like kind of introverts. I'm not standing on the stage holding the microphone. 9 times out of 10, I'm giving the microphone to somebody else. Especially in like a live setting like that. So yeah, I mean, I want to ensure, especially for something like draft night out where people are paying money. I mean, I think last year was like 25 or $30, but still, it's, people are paying money for an experience, and they paid me to have an experience. And, I don't want, I want to make sure I'm giving them what they're paying for. And ultimately, the buck stops with me. So I just, making sure that everything is running smooth and people are having a good time.
And it was an awesome experience. There were so many people in there. Like I didn't draft. I was just walking around and just like taking it all in. To see that many drafts going on at once and that many people in that room was crazy. That weekend was all about getting to network and getting to meet people and do all that. And that was a big part of it, was draft night out. When you put on these when you help with these draft night out, I know there's a bunch of you guys that, have your hand in it. But when you do something like that, are you ever worried that something might happen to kind of throw it off its path?
No, I haven't really thought about that too much, and thanks for putting that in my head now.
No, I was just gonna see if you had any advice for people who want to like do something like that, or like.
Yeah, no, I mean, for anybody that wants to do events, it's just over planning everything. Beforehand, I'm basically writing like a script, for lack of a better term, like, hey, you're doing this from this time to this time, and it's never going to be followed exact. But if everybody everybody involved wants to help you, and you give them a quote unquote job, and it can go pretty successful. Hey, can you make sure the door is taken care of? Can you make sure guests are being checked in? Can you, make sure the tables are laid out correctly? Whatever it is, if everybody has a job and you have enough people that want to help you out, I think pretty much every event I've done now, I felt pretty confident with, for the most part. I can understand the apprehension, of the anxiety of playing something that big, but if you plan enough, it goes well most of the time.
And I mean, everyone that I've attended definitely has gone great. When you pick, like when we did one year, we were at Topgolf, right? So how did that come about?
The top. Oh yeah, that was
that
was the second Dallas. That's right.
Yeah.
That, I mean, the same thing. So we did the one small little tiny league in the corner of the Nodding Donkey that first year in Dallas.
Yeah.
And then we did kind of a bigger one, right? We invited more people. I think we had, so the first draft we had like 13 people to fill out a 12-man league. The second one, I think like maybe 20 or 25 people, maybe 30 people came out. And that was cool. And I was like, hey, if we can get this many people, why not do several drafts? Because everybody wanted to draft. Everybody, and especially when you watch the draft, take place in your live, you're like, oh man, I want to be part of this too. And so we thought, hey, if we can get enough, people, podcasters or whatever involved, let's try to fill out a few leagues. And then one thing led to another, and more people got interested and involved, and kind of snowballed. And so at Topgolf we had 4 leagues, I think we had 4 leagues, 4 or 5, I think. So That went really well. It was a little more expensive because we had like food and drinks available, like open bar and stuff, I think, or at least open food. We had like a buffet and stuff. So we had to charge a little bit more for that. And that I was really, okay, we're talking about anxiety stuff. I was really nervous about all that stuff. Because it's like, I don't know how much food everybody's going to eat.
Yeah, right.
And then like halfway through, some random person asked Top Golf for more chicken fingers. So they brought out like 3 more trays of chicken fingers and charged us like $500 extra.
Oh man.
It was nuts. But that the unknowns, you can plan all you want, but all those unknowns of how exactly it's going to work was a little anxiety inducing for sure.
But it's like you said, you're confident. It's good. So.
Yeah. I mean, at the end of the day, it's as long as everybody's having a good time, nobody's complaining to you. You feel like it's pretty successful.
And so, and doing all this like traveling and stuff for something like fantasy football sounds kind of insane. But
it does.
You guys, you like to travel for fantasy football. How have what has been your favorite trip?
Definitely the Vegas trips. So we've done a couple of, we partnered up with a Vegas party planner a couple years ago, right? I think when we did the Dallas, I don't know, I'm getting all my years screwed up, but basically we did the Dallas. We felt like it went pretty well one of those years, and we got in touch with him. We're like, hey, what are you doing for, fantasy drafts? And he's like, oh, well, I was thinking about trying to host. And so I approached the idea of, letting us come in. We'll promote the event for you on our podcast, but then we'll host at the event. We'll get on the microphone, we'll MC, we'll take care of everything at the draft. And he's like, cool, I don't have to do anything. And so he started paying us to fly out to Vegas, and, he basically paid our flights and hotels, and he still does, to overlook the drafts and just have a presence. We pass out our draft guide. We pass out some, rankings of ours, and everybody's has fun. And that's been really well. That's good connections when you're trying to get sponsorships, if we're talking to people that, are still learning and still trying to get into it, the sponsorship part, creating partners and not just trying to make a quick buck is really important. Leaving some money on the table, maybe, for a long-term relationship. I don't think everybody really feels or thinks that way, but I think it's really important. It's paid off for us for, a couple of our partners. Like this, the draft guy, we told him we would advertise everything for free. We wouldn't do anything. And then he's like, all right, cool, come, we'll at least play for your flights and your hotels. And then he asked us back the next time, and then we asked for a little bit of money on top for spending money. And then, we've done it 4 or 5 years now. And, it's just getting better and better. He has more confidence in us. And, we left a ton of money on the table the first time, but, now, we're getting paid to, fly to Vegas for a weekend. And, and I'm not complaining about that.
No, I love it. I was going to ask you about how your partnership with, Draft Night Out and how all this, intertwined, how you got it going, like was being able to put something on such a big, such a giant scale. It's getting bigger and bigger, and getting to fly to all these places. Like, to me, that's mind blowing. I just don't get it. Like, I couldn't even. I know this is a question. This is just me going, wow. Like, you guys, like that's super dope that you guys were able to do that.
I think so too.
Networking in there, and the partnership. That's great.
Yeah. I mean, it's been awesome. I like traveling. Especially, if it could pay a couple bucks and you can go to a cool city. I've helped a buddy of mine, John Chapman. He runs a 49ers podcast. I helped him plan several trips. He does like away game parties, like pre-parties. And so I helped him with those, and flew out to Chicago with him and did an event for him in Chicago and helped him plan that. Helped him plan, Philly, Chicago, Dallas a couple times, LA a couple times. So, it's cool. It's fun to, and I don't know. I think people, close to me have confidence that I'm going to work hard for them and get stuff done. And so it's been awesome.
And when you started out, did you ever think that you were going to have some sort of role where you'd be planning things and hosting things?
No. I mean, I think I've always liked the experience, thinking about the experience of, getting your listeners. Like I mean, the very first analogy that I thought of when I started seeing my podcast numbers was, wow, this is like I'm in an auditorium and there's 200 people in front of me listening. And that's how I kind of always looked at, podcast numbers for me. I'm thinking like, some people like, oh, there's only, 20 people listening to my episode. Well, 20 people is still a lot of people. Imagine being in a room. It
really is.
Being in a room with a microphone and 20 people standing in front of you listening to every word. That's pretty impressive. And, so I always looked at it like that, like 10, 20 people. And then when it started growing, it was like, okay, like I could fill an auditorium. If like every one of my listeners, they wouldn't, but if they did all come to one place, I could fill an auditorium. And that was so strange to me. But so I kind of always looked at that analogy and thought, hey, let's try to, if it's just not my listeners, why not yours, Casey, and, other podcasters that I know, why not get all their listeners, and maybe we can round up, 50 people in one place in Dallas or whatever and make it work. And, it's just the power of networking, I guess.
And networking at the expo, at the Fantasy Football Expo, you had brought that up earlier, and how, Draft Night Out was like kind of like the kickoff event to get the weekend started. I know there was parties and everything, but like being in a room, being able to draft with people, how cool was it to see people like interact and get to see people for the first time in an event that you were a part of?
Yeah, it was really cool. It was awesome. There's really no better way to say it. Just seeing that, planning it for months in advance and, thinking about where you're going to put the tables and how the draft boards are going to get set up. Can the draft boards stand up on their own? Do you have to tack them to the, to the wall? Are we going to have raffles? How are we going to get raffle, prizes? Are we going to have to pay for the prizes? Are we going to have enough tickets sold to pay for the prize? So, all that stuff. And just to kind of, I said I didn't have fun, and I didn't really mean it like that because it was cool. But at the same time, it's kind of like a sigh of relief to see, people enjoying what you've been working so hard on for, months.
It was great. I mean, that event, like I brought my sister with me, and like we're walking through and people were like, talking to each other and saying my name. And I've never met these people before. And it just was a really cool experience. And for her to be able to experience that. So,
oh yeah. Do you feel like Mrs. Big Time?
I felt like I was pretty dope. Yeah. I felt like, like, hey, what's up? How do you know me? Like, really?
Like you were like doing the one finger point across the room.
Like,
what's up? What's up?
Yeah, what's up? Yeah. Hey. I mean, on Saturday, Sunday I was like hungover.
Yeah.
So.
Don't talk to me on Sunday.
Don't talk to me on Sunday. Let me just sleep. Don't miss the event, kids. I learned, like, I got to the event just very late. Anyway, so like getting to hang out and have an expo where you can like, because I mean, we've been to fantasy football things that have been advertised as fantasy football things, and they're not really for us. Right. So having this kind of place where we can go and be around like-minded people, and I've had Bob on, and like he's a great dude, and that's a great event. Like when you found out that this event was going on, I know last year wasn't the first official year, but last year was the year where like a lot of people turned out. Like, whoa. Yeah. Like when you heard about the event, were you worried that it was going to be something that it wasn't actually, or did you have faith because it was more fantasy football people who had their hands involved?
I knew we would fill one draft. I said, let's just sell one draft at a time. Yeah. And, Bob was so awesome the entire time. And, just talking about like different sponsorships and stuff, it never hurts to ask. Like I just called Bob on a whim. I DM'd him and I said, hey, I got an opportunity. Would you like to talk? He said, sure. I called him, said, hey, I've done, a couple draft events. I think it would be really cool to do at the expo. I don't know if you're doing anything. I knew he had the Kings Classic, so I didn't, obviously. I knew there could be a conflict there, but hey, you ask, and, is there room for us? Can we do something? Like, oh yeah, we have this room. It's already rented out, so maybe you can use it too. And he was really cool, and we planned it together. And super awesome guy to work with through the whole process. So it turned out great.
And even though you guys had a wedding party or something going on out there.
Yeah,
like
there was
one guy and like a bunch of women, and he was like really wishing he was with us instead of with them.
Yeah. That was. I don't think they were counting. I guess they booked. It was like the hallway that they booked, which is kind of weird. But yeah, the whole little wedding party was there as we were checking people in, and that could not have been a pleasant experience for them. I can't imagine.
No.
Because in the middle of their party there was 100 people checking in. It was loud in that hallway to check
It
into the
was,
room,
because
and
everybody's like,
yeah,
hey,
yeah, yeah,
running up to each
yeah, yeah,
other.
yeah. So, and they were trying to have an intimate little
Yeah.
wedding party or whatever they were doing.
That was really funny. I'm sorry. I just thought of it now. I totally forgot about that, but that was hilarious. Um, okay, so events coming up. What exactly all do you have coming up for everybody that's listening? And even in the future, if you're listening to this after they have happened, I'm sure he'll have some sort of event available for
Yeah,
you.
yeah, no, I mean, so the closest one, which I'm really excited about, I am, I'm mentioning the 49ers away games that I've done with John Chapman.
Hmm.
So we partnered up together, and we're doing a live draft party for the actual NFL draft in April 28th. Talk about anxiety. This event is so anxiety inducing because we're dealing with like bigger money. Tickets are $200 to $300 a piece. So it's a live draft event. We're going to be analyzing pick by pick, live streaming the entire thing. We're going to have clips. We're basically going to do our own NFL draft show. On top of that, we're going to have meet and greets by Fred Warner and Elijah Mitchell. Both are going to be there signing autographs, taking pictures, hanging out with us. Open bar, open food the entire time in Mandalay Bay on the Strip. It's a pretty big deal. It's it's a big undertaking, a big financial risk for sure. It's going okay so far. We've managed to sell maybe 50% of the capacity. So that's a big one that we have coming up. We're excited about that. Getting in touch with that was a whole new thing, dealing with agents and players, and I've never dealt with that ever. Not knowing if they're going to be divas. Luckily, both the guys seem pretty cool. So I'm really excited about the event in April. 49ersrushroadtrip.com if you guys want in on that, by the way.
That sounds so cool. Such a great idea. Like,
It's we talked about it. So last year we did like a live draft podcast, and there was pretty good numbers on YouTube. And I said, hey, why don't we do this? And of course, my mind with the events, why don't we just do it live in front of an audience? And then wouldn't it be cool if we had a player? Wouldn't it be cool if we had two players? And then wouldn't it be cool if we did it actually on the Strip in Mandalay Bay? And then we just kept saying, wouldn't it be cool? Wouldn't it be cool? And then just kept going for it. And then so here we are, tens of thousands of dollars in debt, but we'll make it work.
We'll make it work for this hobby. No,
Yeah, exactly.
You're getting these flights and stuff. So, what else do you have going on?
Yeah. So beyond that, we're going to be at the Fantasy Football Expo for the Draft Night Out. That we've been talking about. We're going to do that. It should be maybe double in size, we're guessing.
Whoa.
So last year we did 6 drafts. Last year we did 6 drafts. This year we're looking at 12, maybe 12 drafts at the same time. Throwing in some cool stuff, maybe like I don't know if you like watch poker on TV or whatever, but how they have like a featured table. Maybe we're going to do like a featured draft. Have them like front and center. But I don't want to like pick. Maybe it's like a raffle if you get on the featured draft or what. The one thing I wanted to make sure was, one, for these draft events, to randomize seating. Like you don't want. I was very careful about putting clicks together. I didn't want one table to be in the corner talking to themselves the whole time. So we really try to truly randomize the drafts, and I think that's like a little detail. There's a couple little details like that, but that's one of them. When we're talking about the experience of the events, you want to create that environment to foster networking and kind of force it a little bit, right? So by randomizing the seating and all that stuff, I think helped the event, and it's really going to help this year too. Because we thought about maybe, if you could buy an entire draft by yourself, and it was like, then it gets clicky, and, we don't want that. Although it would be fun to, kind of pre-plan a little bit, but at the same time, you don't want, you're not forcing anybody out of their comfort zone to meet other people and to talk to other people. So let's try to do that.
Huh? Well, I was actually supposed to draft last year, but I gave my spot to my friend Nate Hamilton, so I let
Nice.
him draft. So
Nice. Yeah.
was it
Yeah.
Nate Hamilton?
No,
I
no,
don't
it wasn't
remember.
Nate.
It
Nate
wasn't
had
Nate.
it. Yeah.
Nate
Yeah.
had it.
Yeah.
Oh crap! I only said it because he's been on the podcast, and I wanted to name drop. Who was it? Ryan Weiss? I don't know. It was somebody.
Yeah,
I'm
you know, I
sorry.
think it was. I think it was.
Okay.
I think it was
Whoever
Ryan.
it was, if you're listening, I'm very sorry that I forgot it was you. I had been drinking very many, very many, very many drinks that day, and it's all over.
Yeah, Nate. Shout out Nate Hamilton. Yeah,
Shout out. Shout
yeah
out.
he joined us in Dallas.
Yeah.
One of those first years too.
There we go.
Cool
That's
guy.
probably why he's on my mind. That's what I meant. That's what I meant. But
You know,
yeah.
he was the and I'm sure nobody knows this because it's old news by now, but he was the one that I'll back up. So we were trying to figure out ways to create creative content to basically like trying to somehow get some viral, notoriety, right? Like everybody does, right? They think, that one piece is going to pop and, get them popular. So we were trying to figure out ways to do that. And we were all joking around after draft night out and talking about his beard. We were saying like, man, he had like the best beard at draft night out. And so like the next day, myself, and one of the co-hosts at the time, Christian Brito, we co-wrote a article together that was like the 10 hottest people in fantasy football. And it was like superlatives, right? It was like best beard, best looking hair, best glasses, whatever. Like we had like 10. And that somehow got the attention of NFL Network, and they showed it on NFL Network and they credited us and stuff. And we saw a nice little bump from that. Little TV spot, and then people got mad at us afterwards because we didn't include them, or I think it was
That's so degrading.
Yeah, well, so some people were like, oh, why? And it was like serious, like I wouldn't call it outrage because I don't think we were not big enough to make outrage, but like I know there was like a lot of women emailing me saying like, why wasn't there any women in there? And I was like, it's a lose-lose.
Imagine if you put a woman in there.
That's what I said. I was like, do you really want me to put like, best, whatever? Like, I can't do that. I was like, yeah, I get in too much trouble as it is. I'm not starting to objectifying women in this article as well. But then, it was fun until, we started getting complaints like, you're not representing enough different people. So
I thought it was funny.
Yeah,
it was good. It was a good read.
Yeah. It was. We enjoyed doing it, and like I said, it was cool that it was on the NFL Network and stuff. And we got a lot of pop. We got a little pop for that. That was fun.
That is real cool. I didn't know that, and I remember that now that you brought it up. So I guess it was a good thing I brought up Nate Hamilton. There we go.
It all spawned from Nate Hamilton.
When earlier, I don't want to forget to bring this up, but earlier you were talking about people coming up to you and knowing things about you because you're personal on your podcast. And,
right.
why did you decide to be so open with people that are listening to what you have to say?
I don't know. So we have a like a private group on Facebook that I see it like as like the really concentrated audience. We only have like 5, maybe no, we have less than that. We have like 300 people in this private group on Facebook, and I created it private was because I wanted people to actually want to be in it. I didn't want it to be like a passive thing. Like Twitter can just follow and follow. The private group is like you had to look for it. You had to click that you wanted to join. They needed to be accepted. And so we did that, and so we have like a really core listeners of like 300 people in this private group, and I talk pretty openly in the private group, and then I kind of feel like when we're podcasting, like that's who I'm talking to, and so we'll talk about, I've talked about my wife and kids, I've talked about pretty much my whole life on the 400 episodes, and I don't know, it's probably a bad thing. Being so open, and I don't know. I'm not really sure if it was it's not like premeditated. It's just something I didn't want to censor myself. Does it make sense? Like I wanted to be authentic and didn't want to censor myself. And I felt like if I was holding back, then I was kind of cheating the audience of something.
Yeah. And you can tell when somebody's being fake and stuff and
big time
and holding back or not telling it all like it is, because not everybody, most people's lives aren't 100%
Oh, yeah.
know,
Yeah. No, I mean,
positive and,
I mean, most of the episodes are, about, literally, why my wife is mad at me today. And, I start off so many episodes like, you guys won't believe, the reason why my wife's mad at me today. And I'll go into detail, and it is what it is. Like, I don't understand. I understand not wanting to put out your personal details, but, if you're talking to people and you trust your listeners, why not give them kind of inside glimpse? And as we go, doing the podcast, I kind of felt like the things that were getting a lot of reaction were like personal stories and, authenticity, like that, what was getting a lot of feedback. And I was like, okay, I'll, listen to the audience. Most of the time, the feedback from our listeners is, sending me a picture of a microwave hot dog. And, there's a big long story behind microwave hot dogs in our show, but I get more pictures of hot dogs than I do about any fantasy advice. It's weird. We started off early on. We had a debate, what was better, a microwave hot dog or a boiled hot dog, and people like stuck to it. And it's been 4 years, 5 years, and they're still talking about hot dogs. And I mean, I get tagged in stupid videos of people throwing hot dogs around, whatever. And nobody's talking about the horrible advice I gave about Austin Eckler last year. They're telling me that I'm crazy because my wife cooked a carrot hot dog for 4th of July and I ate it, and like that's just what the listeners enjoy, and so I just keep talking about it.
How was that carrot hot dog?
It's okay. If you put enough toppings on anything,
you can trick your brain, kind of.
You kind of can. I mean, the consistency was decent. Like, she marinated it and did all this crazy stuff to it. But you put ketchup, mustard, relish, onions, like, it's not that much different. It really isn't. And people call me crazy, but it's not that bad. It's not that, and apparently it's healthier for you.
I mean, when I was trying to eat healthy, I did see that recipe every now and then. There'd be like carrot hot dogs. I was like, I don't know, man. I don't know if I can do that. Carrot in place of an actual, why not,
Yeah.
So, so having hot dogs be a part of your quote unquote brand now that people are telling, like, everybody's got like some weird little thing that people that listen to their shows know about and tag them in that stuff. Is it? And you said it was weird that people would, that people know these things. But like, it has to be really cool too to know that you have such loyal listeners.
Yeah, no, it is. Especially when they talk about the hot dogs and stuff, because I know the people that really get that, the jokes, most of the time, it's like recipes on stupid hot dog stuff. And like, I know they're not sharing it because they want to share me a recipe. Like, they just want to be in on the joke, which is really cool. So yeah, when they share stuff like that, I know, the OGs is, what we call them, from the first season or two. If they've been around long enough to want to end on the hot dog joke, it's pretty cool.
I want to go back to real quick because we were talking earlier about the podcast and how it started doing well. And the name, I mean, Eat Sleep Fantasy is such a great name for a fantasy football podcast. How did you guys come up with that?
So all the original hosts, the core group of guys I talked about earlier, we are all very argumentative, couldn't decide on anything. And I think it was just like the last thing that somebody said. We were joking around about Eat, Pray, Love. And, and then somebody said, oh, we should just be Eat, Sleep, Fantasy. And we're like, okay, whatever. Let's just name it that. And if we want to change it, we can change it later. And then it just kind of stuck. I don't know. It is a weird name. A lot of times people are like, do you talk about, ironically, like, no, we don't, it's not a food podcast, but yes, because we're a bunch of guys that, are middle-aged, overweight. Yeah, food comes up a lot. But yeah, they're like, okay, the eat part I get, but what about sleep? It's like, it's nothing. It's just a title. So, yeah, I think it was just the last. I think it was just the last thing, that somebody mentioned in the chat, and we're like, all right, F it, let's just do it.
I mean, Eat, Sleep, Fantasy. I mean, those are all necessities. So makes
that's
sense.
What we're saying.
Exactly.
Yeah, you need all three, right?
You need all three. You need all three. You brought up your wife, why she's mad at you. Is it ever because you're taking too much of your hobby into wife and family time?
Sometimes, yeah, yeah. I mean,
Yeah.
sometimes it is early on, especially because she just
Mm.
thought it was stupid, and she still does. She hates football, but she does she enjoys her podcast. So now she kind of gets it, and she's cool. But yeah, when we first started, we started, and then I had my first kid, and it was like, okay, you take care of the baby, I'm going to go record, and that was not flying. So that was hard to navigate for a little while, but yeah, it's been okay for the most part. And especially now that I can make a couple bucks off of it, pay a portion of a bill here and there. I think that kind of softens the blow. But yeah, for a while it was she was not very happy about any of it.
I used to ask that question a lot on the show because I wanted to know, because I'm trying to still trying to get my wife to come around to it, but I'm like, I promise you,
Yeah, yeah,
I'm trying. So
yeah, yeah,
kind of,
yeah.
so what kind of advice do you have for people, especially new fathers who are getting into
Mhm.
podcasting or writing or whatever? What kind of advice do you have for those guys or gals or anybody that's just feeling
Yeah,
what do I,
for me, yeah, for me it
you
was
know?
super planning. Hey, babe, I am recording on Monday at 8, and I would tell her a week in advance. I'm
Mm.
recording on Monday and Tuesday. I got to record, and if she, we can kind of plan around it, plan bedtimes and stuff. Pretty decently. I don't know. I was really bad at it. I'm definitely the wrong person to give advice because I thought a lot about it.
Well,
We it was a subject of a lot of arguments early on for sure. I don't know. We kind of just worked through it and we're good now. Somehow.
well, at least people that are listening that are doing this, that are starting out, will feel like, okay, there's other people out there like me,
Yeah.
in case they get yelled at by
Yeah.
their wife
Yeah.
or their
Yeah.
husband or whatever.
Yeah. Yeah.
It
Exactly.
happens.
Exactly.
Um, but so being a family man, having kids and a wife and everything, what do you guys like to do when you're a family for in your free time?
The kids. So I have a 5-year-old and a 2-year-old. They take up 99% of our time doing anything. So just a typical suburban family, I guess. We'll go to the parks and stuff, and go for bike rides or walk the neighborhoods, stuff like that. A lot of home time. We're pretty much homebodies most of the time. So we have a nice setup with a playroom and stuff like that here at the house. So yeah, it all works out. It's pretty cliche, common stuff that we're not like rock climbers or X Games people or anything like that. So it's pretty routine. Going to the local park and taking a stroll.
Well, I guess so. You guys were basically, when a global pandemic hits, it wasn't. How was that? With having kids, was it some the same because you guys are used to being at home, or were there things that you had to change?
Yeah, I mean, so we had my second or my youngest daughter. We had her in October, right before COVID broke out. So she's a COVID baby. Her basically the first year of her life, she didn't meet anybody. So that could have, I think that's strange for babies, right? I mean,
Yeah.
she seems okay. She's pretty well adjusted now, but when it was, right after we started seeing more people and kind of got out a little bit more, I think it was a shock to her, for a 1-year-old or 1.5-year-old to meet people for the first time and see other people out. I mean, I don't know. I guess it was kind of like this all around the country, right? Parks, the local parks were closed, and they had certain areas roped
Yeah.
off and stuff. So,
Hmm.
we weren't even doing that. We were spending a lot of time in the backyard and stuff. But yeah, it was fun. It was challenging. We spent a lot of time as a family. My job, luckily, I kept trucking along. I'm in landscape industry, so we stayed relevant through the whole thing. So I was still going to work. I think that level of anxiety that a lot of families had of everybody being at home the whole time, we didn't really have that. So I guess that's a kind of a silver lining there.
Yeah, that is we perfect time to have a landscaping company come over, and we did. We got all kinds of stuff done because we had just moved in a couple months before the December,
Yeah,
and then
yeah.
couldn't
Well,
leave the house. So.
at first I was a little nervous because I wonder what's gonna happen to my job. I mean, I deal with operations and things like that. But the more you think about it, it's for safety and welfare to make sure as simple as is, make sure the grass is cut, and commercial properties, rats, rodents, or whatever could get out of hand, and all that stuff was pretty important during the pandemic. That stuff that you really don't think of, but keeping the shrubs if they go crazy and get too high or whatever. I could talk about landscaping for the next hour if you want me to.
Was that the thing you like to talk about that you didn't want to tell us earlier? See,
No.
I told you guys it would be towards the end. There it is.
There you go.
Landscaping.
So you got any gardening questions, Casey? I'm here for the next half hour answering any. I can talk about soils, turf. What do you?
Hey man, I might. We have a landscaping company, but hey, I don't know. And we're kind of far away, but hey, do you get that you sound like anybody?
No.
Okay. Because I was listening earlier to one of your pods, and I mean, I know what your voice sounds like, but I was like, dang, it sounds like somebody else, but I just couldn't. Somebody famous, somebody. I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know. I never got that. I mean, I'm super. I kind of changed my voice too. I realize, my inflection.
I think we all do.
Yeah, right. Depending on your mood.
Yeah, exactly.
My wife says sometimes I talk like I have a frog in my throat. I don't know how or why. She's like, well, why are you talking like this? And I was like, I don't mean to. It's just how I'm talking. And then sometimes, I'm more. I don't know. I think I changed my voice out a lot. And it depends kind of who I'm talking to as well, right?
Yeah.
I kind of like match energies, I guess. A lot of times. Are you with me that did you struggle listening to yourself?
Yeah, so I don't like to. I kind of went back and listened today to the episode of your podcast that I did with you.
Oh yeah.
When we did that mock draft.
Yeah.
Just to kind of see how
that episode.
I mean,
that episode I talk like I vividly remember listening to that episode and figuring I don't know if it was because I was tired that day, but that episode especially I was talking like that the whole time. I don't know why. It's really weird. It's really strange. But
well, I didn't notice that, so
good.
I thought it was a really awesome experience. So.
Yeah, no, that was a fun time. We talked a lot about talked a little bit about hip hop. You introduced me to MF Doom.
Yes.
On that
Rest
episode.
in peace, MF Doom.
Yeah, that's crazy. Yeah. So I started listening to him right after you mentioned.
Yeah, I remember that. I was like, I had to go back and see what we did. We drafted Michael Thomas with our first pick, 107, crazy. Whatever year that was,
right.
A couple of years back. Mm-hmm. But yeah, it was crazy to go back, and I don't really like to listen to myself talk. But I do notice when I especially when I record the intro, when I do that separately when I'm not talking to a person, sometimes I'm like. I talked to this person, and I'm not trying to say it's just the day that I record the intro is the worst day of my life or something. Exactly, I don't know.
Exactly. By the way, I really like how you do the intros. We did that a couple times late, maybe 5 or 6, 10 episodes ago. I really enjoy the kind of a quick recap. I really want to do that more on our podcast as well. So kudos to you for sticking with it and doing it that way, because I think it benefits the listener. It sets the tone really fast. I wish more podcasts would do that, because it gets you engaged quicker. And, you kind of give little snippets we talk about whatever, talk about landscaping. And it's oh, when is he going to talk about landscaping? That's going to be I'll be listen, we're going to talk about the thing that Dale didn't want to admit to. It's landscaping. There you go.
Well, I appreciate that. I don't do really very much editing, if any. It just depends on if I really, really need to go in and cut something out. But other than that, I don't, because this is just a conversational podcast. So I was I might as well do something that's going to feel like I'm doing more stuff than just throwing it out there. I was I'm going to do an intro. And then I was now I'm stuck doing it. So I can't get out of it, because it is easier just to be who are you? And what do you, what are you about? Instead of having to record something separately.
Right. No, I love it though. So do you do it right after? Right after the episode, or do you?
Sometimes, but sometimes I don't, and then I'm having to go back and kind of listen at 1.5 speed to kind of refresh my memory. If I haven't put an episode out in a while or something.
That's what stopped me from doing it, is because I didn't do it right away. I was crap. Now, what do we talk about? What. And it was just a nightmare. And I was okay, I'm not doing this anymore. And then I did it a couple more times after that, and it was cool. But you got to stick with it and write good notes and stuff like that.
Yeah,
which I don't
and my
do.
Notes are this is how I talk to you. It's just a bunch of scribble, and they can't see it, but it's just scribble. And there's lines and arrows and stuff. So,
right. I know I know this. I know the topic of tattoos have come up a couple times.
Mm-hmm.
How many tattoos do you have? I want to ask a question about tattoos in a second. Do you have uh,
One, two, like five, six, one, six.
so your first? I'm sure you thought about your first tattoo for a long time, and then it was like an open floodgate. Is that correct?
Yeah,
I'm
so
guessing.
I was like 34. I don't know. Like the first time you met me, I didn't have any tattoos. And then I
Right.
got my first tattoo was actually, well, I did have one on my shoulder. My wife drew a heart and that was my very first tattoo.
Oh, nice.
So once I got that, then I was like, hey, can I get that? So a couple of years later though, I was like, I got one and then like 2 weeks later I had another one. It was
Yeah, yeah.
yeah, I got a little
I'm having a tough time because I really for like I don't know last pretty much my whole adult life I wanted a tattoo. Still have not gotten one. I am like deathly afraid. Like I want to make the right decision, and
yeah.
I have researched the hell out of like different styles, different things that I want. Like now that I have two girls, maybe get their names or something. But then like what style, where to get it? It seems I cannot wrap my head around that decision making process. Because it's there.
Yeah.
I don't want to do something like too masculine or too, like I want to like, I don't know. I don't know. I mean, and then I talk to somebody like you, and you have like a Biggie tattoo, and it's like
I do.
it's not, it's
So you
like,
think
so it's not that big of a deal. Just like go for it, right? What would be your
yeah.
advice?
My advice is like, because I mean, my personality, I never had tattoos, but I feel like I'm one of those people that's like out there, and I'm like,
Hmm.
not. I
You
think,
seem like a girl that would have tattoos.
yeah, I
Mhm.
always wanted them, and then once I got the first one, I was like, okay, and then I was like, well, on this arm, I want to have music related, so that's what I decided to do on this arm. And I only have 3 tattoos there right now, and I've got a spot that looks really lame that needs another tattoo. But like I was just like, you know what? If I'm gonna do music, I'm gonna do that. I'm only gonna get tattoos. Well, I mean, I have one on there, but I mean, I was like, I'm only gonna get tattoos where I can at least wear, long sleeves, and it'll be fine, whatever. And my wife was like, as long as you don't get them below your, your elbow or whatever. And you think, I mean, convincing my wife was the hard part to let me get a
Right.
Biggie Smalls tattoo, so
Yeah. 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 That's awesome.
but I mean, if you want one, once you get the first one, even if you like, I'm sure at some point I'm gonna be like, ugh. But for now, I'm like, I'm gonna just roll with it. And it's part of what I wanted at the time. So,
Yeah.
and now we're old enough too, where we didn't get a stupid tattoo when we were, 18 years old.
Right. 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 Right.
So
Yeah.
so think it out. I mean, thinking it out is important and everything, but at the end of the day, you're gonna like it no matter what, I think. So
Yeah. See, I'm not sure. I'm
my
not
dad
sure.
got tattoos on his arm like last year or
Hmm.
something, and it's my sister's name and my name, and then like 2 butterflies, like and those are on
That's
his
cool.
arms.
Yeah. Yeah. That's
So
yeah, man. I don't know. I just need something to push me over the edge. Like I need to like,
yeah,
you
I'm not
know,
gonna be able to do. Maybe I'll get my friend Amy to hit you up. She's got tattoos
yeah.
everywhere, and she's in IT, and
Well,
she's
that's a cool thing. Like I think, like in my mind, I'm thinking like I just don't want, my daughter's name is Beatrice and Dorothy, so I don't
yeah,
want just like two names on me. I think that
right,
looks like lame. So I want to get a sleeve. And then people are
yeah.
like, I can't commit to a sleeve. Like I don't even have one tattoo yet.
Yeah,
So
you swear. I got like this was like my second tattoo that I got was like this entire like just it's not the greatest in
that's
the
awesome.
world,
Yeah, no,
but
I see
it's
it. Yeah,
still
yeah, yeah.
like so the homie who does my or who did my tattoos, I don't he's far away now, but like he's just a homie, he's just a friend. So
Yeah.
like my friend was getting tattoos from him, and then I was like, okay, my turn. So yeah.
I do have one tattoo that's when I was in 8th grade, I was trying to impress this girl, and her sister was doing like tattoos, and so I just had her do a tattoo like on behind my calf, and I still have it. It's so weird. It's a weird part of my history, and I'm glad I didn't get anything bigger because she's
You say
but
8th grade?
8th grade, yeah, yeah,
Okay.
yeah,
Yeah,
yeah, yeah. She did it with the needle and the ink and all that stuff, and yeah, it
that
was
and
yeah, yeah.
that and the branding, all the guys are like branding each other. I'm
Yeah.
like, I
No,
don't know
but
what
my tattoo's literally it's like I don't know, probably the size of like your pinky nail. Yeah, I
that's
guess
cool.
like yeah.
Hey, so you've already got one, so you know how it is. So
Yeah, I guess
it's a cakewalk from
there you
there.
go. I it didn't open up any floodgates for me. So it's pretty
No.
hidden. So yeah, no. But I will maybe next time we see each other, maybe I'll
Yeah.
finally pull the trigger. But
I
I
mean,
wanted some advice. So
I
just go
couldn't
for
give
it.
you. I say just go for it,
Okay.
but like I can give you any like great advice because I didn't really have to think my stuff out too much. I already
That's
knew.
awesome.
Like I was
I
just
think
like,
that those are the best though. I really feel like
yeah.
that, right?
I
Like
well, I
just
told
do
the
it.
guy go ahead and design something for this arm, and I was like, I think I want it to be the desert, which has the only meaning is like I went there with my wife, and that's where she's from, and like I guess like I liked it,
Yeah.
and I don't know.
It's yeah. But now it's just cool. Yeah.
Well,
Now
now it's
he's
it's there. So,
yeah.
yeah, no real advice. Maybe Daniel Dopp. He was on last week. Maybe I'll get him to
There
to,
you go.
to help you out. His
There you go.
his awesome sleeves and stuff.
Yeah, yeah.
Um. So okay. So I can't ask you what tattoo you would want to get if
Yeah, no, I
because
think
you're still think.
yeah. I mean, I think, my whole life has been in the landscape industry. Like I've done landscaping my whole life. So,
Mhm.
I would guess like some kind of like tropical floral type stuff,
Yeah.
around the names, but I don't know.
Oh yeah,
I don't know.
that's
Maybe I
super
just need,
cool.
maybe I just need to meet an artist that will do something cool. Like
You
let them kind of
yeah.
run the show, right? And then they come up with something awesome and then I can kind of give my thumbs up and do it.
Yeah,
I
that's
don't
what
yeah,
you should
yeah,
do because
yeah, yeah.
and make sure you give your thumbs up because on this back tattoo I have a Blink 182 tattoo and no, I love it. But like the original version I didn't like and I almost let him just tattoo it on me just because I'm afraid to say like,
Yeah, yeah,
speak up. So
right.
I'm glad I did because I wanted the flowers to be a certain way. So he fixed
What's your
it.
Blink 182? I remember seeing your Biggie one. What's the
Oh
Blink
yeah, the
182?
Blink, it's like the logo.
Oh yeah,
It's
yeah,
got
yeah,
flowers. It's got
yeah,
flowers on one side.
yeah,
So I wanted
yeah.
the flowers to look like
Nice,
a certain way. So
nice.
I got what I wanted. Um so yeah, don't be afraid to speak up
Okay.
if the guy or gal you find. But yeah.
What's your next music tattoo?
I want a Rancid tattoo, but I don't like any of their like logos and stuff. So
All right.
I like their song Radio. So something to
Nice.
incorporate a radio or something. So
Yeah, yeah.
yeah.
Cool.
Yeah. So there's that. So I like to ask people too towards the end of the podcast, like, what are some things about you, some quirky kind of like, what do you like? What makes you tick? What makes you go besides, I mean, fantasy football is fantasy
hmm
football, but
hmm
what are some of your go-to things?
I don't know. I'm super competitive. I mentioned at the beginning of the show that I'm a Papa Shop champion.
Oh yeah,
Yeah,
you
yeah,
know what? I almost forgot to ask
yeah.
you about that. I
In
even
that
wrote it down.
intro, I will request that you don't even have to say Eat Sleep Fantasy. You don't have to say any of that. Just say one time Papa Shot champion. Okay.
Okay, I will.
I was at a NBA All Star game a few years back, and they had like this big competition, hundreds of people, and I was like I was second to last person in line, and this is a true story, 100%. Second to last person in the line out of like hundreds of people, right? A long line wrapping around the building. So I finally go. The high score was like 30 at the time. I go, for some reason, I'm in the zone. I've never been a great Papa Shop person. I'm in the zone. I obliterate the score. Like I'm like in the 50s, right? So I get the high score by a million. People are high fiving me. There was a WNBA player there. She was high fiving me. Everybody was going crazy because the person thought whoever won this competition was going to win tickets to the All-Star game that night, which is a pretty big deal. I mean, the tickets aren't cheap. It was to the slam dunk competition. So we were really excited. I was jumping up and down, high-fiving everybody. Camera crew comes up to my face, like interviews me because it's for a big company. And as I'm doing the interview, like everybody's like patting me on the back and stuff. Awesome time. The last person in line, ends up beating my score by 1. And
Oh.
luckily it was the top 2 that won it. So I'm still considering myself a champion. I mean, I am a champion. I still won a prize. But the camera crew immediately shifted away from me. Like they didn't talk. They stopped talking to me. I thought I was going to be a spokesperson. It was for the company Rakuten. I
Oh
don't know
yeah,
if you ever
okay.
heard of them.
Yep.
They kept saying, they told me, they were like, hey, can you just say thank you, Rakuten, for you blah, blah. And I didn't know how to pronounce their name. Like I kept reading their name, and the
Yeah.
name, the way it reads is not the way it
Yeah.
sounds. And so I think they immediately knew I was not going to be a sports, a spokesman for them. But I still, I won the tickets because it was the top two. But yeah, it was a good time. So yeah, I'm just super competitive, all that stuff. When I think I was 6 or 7 years old, I licked a Tootsie Pop, all the way to the center. Yeah.
Do you know how many licks it took to get to the center of the
2009?
Oh, really?
2009. Yep. And I know that because I wrote Tootsie Pop. And I told them that I knew exactly how many licks it took to get to the center. And they sent me a certificate with how many licks. It has my name on it. And it's signed by, like, I don't know, the president or something of Tootsie Pop Company or whatever. And it has how many licks. It's framed up in my office. It's
Mr. Tootsie Pop is just like signing.
Yeah.
So that's cool. So you're Papa Shot champion and you know how many
Tootsie.
licks, and you got a certificate for it.
Look,
So
a lot of people,
look,
Casey, a lot of people know how many licks it takes. Not very many people have a certificate to show.
No, I don't know anybody until now. So that's pretty dope. Yeah, I mean, you better have it framed.
And the third thing, I was in second grade. I won a Pinewood Derby in my Cub Scouts.
Well,
I was like, I think it was 8 or 9 years old, and I beat a 13-year-old. I beat his Pinewood Derby.
Oh,
so
you're a baller.
Look, you said it.
Hey, I'm just saying. That's what it sounds like.
You're talking about my 3 biggest accomplishments in life.
Yeah,
that's those 3 for sure. Yeah,
okay.
And they all involve competition.
Yeah,
and it's the only way I sleep at night.
Hey, I'm jealous. I'm very jealous. I'm just, I wish I could have something like that framed in my office. Maybe I'll write them.
It's
now
never too late,
see.
Casey.
Yeah,
it's never too late.
Know. So,
look, I don't know how long it took me, but I do remember in between licks, like I remember going to bed and having to put it like on a napkin and put it in my fridge. So I'm not sure how many days it took, but I thank my parents for encouraging me to keep licking a lollipop and finishing something.
Hey,
it's
thanks, parents.
Life. Yeah,
I mean, you guys raised.
I never really got to publicly thank them for
for that,
and
everything.
Mom, Dad, if you're listening, thank you. Shout out, Mom and Dad.
Do you think? Shout out, Mom and Dad. Do you think that it might change now because you're a grown man and because it's 2020? So maybe like the lollipop formation, the formula for the lollipop has changed, and
Good question.
The size of the mouth. There's a lot of.
There are a lot of factors, Casey.
You
have
to redo it.
The one certificate's enough.
Okay.
But yeah, I mean, you have a point. Do tongues grow? How?
I don't. I mean,
I heard eyeballs don't grow.
Well, I don't know. I don't know. I mean, I get.
Don't you have a producer or something that can look this up?
Nope. It's just little old me right now. Dogs. I need you guys to learn how to use the internet.
No, eyeballs, they don't grow as you grow. I think like once you get to a certain age, they stop growing. And I would bet your tongue doesn't. Well, no, your tongue has to get bigger. That doesn't make any sense. No,
because your head.
Yes.
Yeah, I mean, yeah.
Well,
would that be I was kidding. And then like this big baby with this giant tongue, flopping it out.
I was thinking my daughter's like, there's no way that. That's ridiculous. My tongue.
Yeah. I don't know. I haven't even been drinking, man. Maybe I need to start. So. All right, we're gonna wrap this guy up, but before we do, I want to be able to get all your info out there. I want everybody to know where to follow and find all your stuff and all that jazz. So go ahead and tell everybody.
Really quick, babies aren't born with kneecaps. You can find me on Twitter at EatSleepFF. I'm on Twitter. I'm just not super active in posting, but at EatSleepFF. For the stuff for Fantasy Football Expo at Draft Night Out FF, or you can find me somewhere. I'm pretty sure it's Draft Night Out FF. EatSleepFantasy.com. It's a website. You can find me there. What else? I think that's about it. Oh, if you guys, if anybody's interested in the draft event in April 28th in Las Vegas, if you're going to be around, we'd love to see you. 49ersRushRoadTrip.com. It's going to be a really fun time. And did I miss anything? I think that's it. And
Draft Night Out sells out, right?
Yeah. Limited space. Yeah. So this year we have 12 leagues. We already started selling tickets. So it definitely will fill up. But by the time August rolls around, so trying to get to as many people as possible to commit. And yeah, it's gonna be a good time.
Awesome. I look forward to all of that and everything else. It was such a blast having you on the show, and I can't wait to see you again.
Yeah, definitely. Shout out Austin Thompson. He told me that I wouldn't say his name in your podcast. He's listened to every one of your episodes.
I know. I told him I want to get him on. So
don't put Austin on. He is a snooze fest. No, I'm joking. Austin, I'm just kidding.
All right, we'll try to get the scoop out of him. But all right, well, everybody go check out Dale, check out Eat Sleep Fantasy, check out all the events, and make sure to come back next week for a new episode of Get Real with Casey Kasem. Stay rad.